is the branch of knowledge that deals with moral principles, standards that govern our behavior and lead us to do things that are right and acceptable within society. Let me mention 3 facets of ethics that help shape why we and those around us do the things we do. There are other facets to be sure, but I'm going to start with only 3. First, many people believe that if you do good things to others, then others will feel compelled to do good things to you. This is often called the law of reciprocity, karma, or the golden rule. You do something good because you want a good consequence to occur. In a store, if you give the owner some money, then you expect to get something back of similar or acceptable value. If you want to receive a present, you give others a present and hope they feel obligated or indebted to give you something too. If you want tasty, ripe tomatoes, then you will plant and lovingly nurture your own homegrown tomato plants. We call this the law of the harvest, where you reap what you sow. Of course, if you decide to plant havoc and pain and misery, that is what you will eventually accumulate. Now, the law of reciprocity is a natural law, one that is based on time-tested truths that have been proven throughout the history of humanity. Now, second, in addition to the law of reciprocity, for society to exist and thrive, you also need to obey its rules, make and keep commitments, and be industrious, and fulfill your duties and obligations as a citizen of that society. As you do that, you earn positive rewards, such as liberty, freedom, prosperity, and peace of mind. To disobey or to slack off or to mooch off the benevolence of others doesn't entitle you to these benefits. There are other, less desirable consequences. In philosophical terms, this concept of societal obligations is sometimes called deontology. It features codified rules like don't kill, don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, and so on. It is the idea that when you obey these socially acceptable norms, then you will be treated with respect and dignity. These rules may have a divine origination, or they may come from some sort of rights-based constitution, or stem from justice-based beliefs. But most of the time, for most people, deontology is good and helpful and helps form a stable society. But in today's world, it isn't too hard to imagine what anarchy would occur without these social contracts and guidelines. Third, there seems to be an innate drive to do good simply because you want to do good, regardless of the outcomes or duties. You aren't as concerned with the benefits you receive or the rules of society as you are with simply becoming a better person. You set personal standards for yourself because you want to achieve moral excellence. Even if most of the people around you are doing something that you think is inherently wrong, your internal locus of control compels you to do that which is good and ideal. You follow your inner voice and stay committed and congruent to your intrinsic values. We call these actions virtues if they are good, and vices if they are bad. But that begs the question of what is right and what is wrong. Is rightness and wrongness relative? Which means that what may be right to you may be wrong for another? Or is there some sort of fixed universal standard of truth about what is right and wrong, or what is good and bad, what is moral or immoral? Personally, through reason and faith, I believe there are universal standards and universal virtues, and when I try to align my own behaviors with those ideals, I invariably see positive or good outcomes. when I don't, I almost always experience bad outcomes. Outcomes that don't just affect me, but those around me. Our good behaviors are called virtues, and our bad behaviors are called vices. Virtues can also be maximized or minimized until they morph into vices. Fortunately, vices can be eliminated by merely making better choices. As we know, the only behavior that we can fully control is our own behavior. Like many of you, I aspire to govern and regulate my behavior every day by intentionally trying to live up to the things I believe are virtuous. I often fall short, but that doesn't stop me from trying over and over and over again, day after day, month after month, year after year. I also find it difficult, if not impossible, to do that on my own. And so I associate with others who are also on a quest to be the best they can be. I try to learn from others and follow in their footsteps, especially if they can lift me up to their higher ways. Now, all three of these philosophies may not match your personal philosophies, and that is perfectly fine. I believe you have an inalienable right to be free to think and feel and act as you choose, as long as your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors don't take away the agency of others. Furthermore, because every decision has fixed consequences attached to it, you are forever free to choose the consequences you desire the most, the realization of which may take longer than we would like. Of course, we aren't living alone on a deserted island, so we almost always make choices that affect others. Sometimes these are negative, sometimes these are positive. This is bound to happen when we are surrounded with disparate individuals with independent thoughts who are also free to govern themselves according to the dictates of their own conscience. This is one of the reasons why I believe the notion of postmodern relativism is not only a fallacy, but a recipe for chaos and confusion, as well as division and disharmony. Without a set of shared values, society cannot exist, let alone unify around something that is genuinely good. If you think you are doing something that is virtuous, but I think it is a vice, we may find ourselves in a terrible conflict, if not a destructive war. Millions of people have fought and died over these differences for millennia. Entire nations and civilizations have been wiped out because of disharmony and intolerance, even for those who choose to be intolerant. Now, with this foundational philosophy in place, let me explain the work that lies before you now. After creating the world's first patented personality assessment back in the 1990s and studying, writing, and teaching about these different temperaments named after the colors of blue, gold, green, and orange, I have identified 52 virtues, 13 for each temperament, which appear naturally and almost instinctively to each color. That doesn't mean they belong exclusively to the domain of each type, but that they are more likely to be acquired and demonstrated by those temperaments with less effort. But with just a little more effort on our part, the rest of us can develop them too. These virtues are often spotted in emotionally intelligent and mature individuals who seek to make their lives better and who try to help others do the same. Fortunately, these virtues are adoptable by almost anyone, regardless of their personality preferences. Of course, they are also the very tip of the virtue iceberg. There are hundreds of other virtues that are adoptable by anyone, regardless of their temperament. Virtues such as honesty, fidelity, humility, integrity, patience, generosity, kindness, charity, creativity, dignity, sacrifice, discernment, reverence, fairness, mercy, nobility, simplicity, love, and so on. Every virtue is worthy of cultivation. And there are many religious and service organizations, as well as support groups and organizations such as ours, that can help you acquire some of these virtuous characteristics. If you aren't sure whether something is a virtue or not, let me offer a quick test. If a particular behavior fills you with light, warmth, peace, and joy, it is likely a virtue. If it sparks you to do something that helps others or adds value, it is a virtue. If it is beautiful or worthy of praise, it is worthy of emulation. On the other hand, if it produces shame, guilt, damages relationships, or destroys feelings of self-worth, then it is almost always a vice. Avoid any vice like the plague, because it is a plague that damages and disables far too many people. Vice always destroys and tears down. Virtue always builds and elevates. Please join me for the pursuit of a lifetime, and let us regularly choose virtue over vice. This won't be an easy journey, to be sure, because it takes place on the road less traveled. We will encounter many obstacles and stumbling blocks and even hurdles, many of which are placed on our path by others who aren't interested in our well-being. Some challenges are even placed there because of our own bad habits. But learning to overcome them and direct our efforts in a forward and upward direction is well worth the effort. I wouldn't necessarily call this process fun. It will often be uncomfortable and occasionally painful, especially as we start to clearly see our own defects and deficiencies in the light of truth. But nevertheless, it will be an amazing journey of self-improvement with sights and sounds and experiences along the way that will take your breath away as we ascend to a transcendent and transformational destination. I look forward to joining you along the path. See you soon.